We've got a heavy board of advisors at Vets for Child Rescue, and one of them is a Navy Admiral. I asked him very early on, I said, I'm hearing about expansion of GITMO, Admiral, and it seems like that might be in preparation for housing some of these traitors and high-level government officials that are treasonous to the American people. Is GITMO, in fact, chartered to house those type of people, or is it just, as my previous understanding was, just international terrorists? And he said, no, Craig, it's, he goes, I was part of the board that drafted up the charter for GITMO. He goes, it's absolutely for high-level government officials who are traitors. So the build out of GITMO and all these sealed indictments and the fact that it is within the GITMO charter, I am hopeful.
Hey friends, thanks for tuning in. Before we begin this absolutely gripping interview with Craig Sawyer, I want to let you know this video is brought to you in part by our friends at Noble Bitcoin. Now, gold, silver, and Bitcoin are back in the news because lately global markets have been absolutely pummeled. So if you're thinking about getting into Bitcoin or other cryptos and you want to use an IRA or even an old 401k, you can actually do that, and Noble Bitcoin is very knowledgeable in those areas. They're one of the few outfits out there who can advise you how to boost your retirement with cryptos, and with the lowest fees in the industry, getting started with cryptos in your retirement accounts becomes all the more feasible. If you want to get some skin in the game with exposure to cryptos by using your IRA or 401k, contact Noble Bitcoin. The phone number is in the more info section just below this video. Now, friends, thanks so much for tuning in. Sean from SGTreport here. Welcome back. It's great to have you back. I know I say that every time, but it's absolutely true. I appreciate you all so very much, because without you, there would be no us, and there would be no opposition to the New World Order's Mockingbird mainstream media. And to that end, I wanted to get back on Craig Sawman Sawyer today for an update. He's the founder of vetsforchildrescue.org, and he's recently gone public with some very personal information about the attack and rape of his daughter back in March 2017. So for any of you that send me emails saying, Craig is COINTELPRO, I've been there, I've been through it, I've been attacked over the years. They always attack the trees that bear fruit. And you know the name of the Democrat game too is to discredit and to defame. That's what they tried to do to Brett Kavanaugh. It didn't work. Craig, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, welcome back. Guys, the mission of Vets for Child Rescue is this. They're a nonprofit organization whose mission is to assist law enforcement and non-governmental organizations to eliminate domestic child sex trafficking. Boy, that's a big, big mission, Craig, and we're glad you're out there doing it.
It is. So when I started learning what was going on with the child trafficking inside the continental United States, I knew I had to alert the populace. That I figured that was my best contribution, is to rally 320 million Americans to get everybody to change the culture against it, because our laws, our psychological system, our academic systems are all very soft on pedophilia right now. And that's been orchestrated and worked on back since the 1950s with Alfred Kinsey. So I'm out to alert the populace so that they can understand the nature of the threat and what's happening to our kids. Man, if you love American people and if you love our next generation, you love children, you don't want to see them getting raped. You don't want to see their little minds getting destroyed. You don't want to see this happening. And so I have to fight back. And yes, you mentioned our daughter, her case, we were not wanting to talk about until just recently. She's ready now. It's been 18 months. She was taken at knife point from a Subway sandwich shop in Tucson, Arizona, and brutally sexually assaulted for hours. And it was an attack on our family that obviously very upsetting. And they caught the perpetrator. But what's been happening since then, over the last 18 months, is that my daughter still has not enjoyed seeing her attacker held accountable in trial. He has been allowed to cycle through 14 different public defenders in Tucson. He fires one, and then they assign him another one, and the trial gets delayed every time. And he's had 3 competency hearings to determine whether or not he's competent to stand trial. So at some point, we all want everybody to have the benefit of the doubt and to have a fair trial, no matter what the circumstance. False accusations don't work. That's not our society. That's not how we function. So he needs a fair trial, but at what point does a career criminal have limits put on how many public defenders he can cycle through and how much money he can waste? How much of our tax dollars does he get to waste? At some point, there has to be a limit. Otherwise, he can just do this for 1,000 years until he's dead and never have a trial. So that's not optimal. So we just hope that a smarter solution can be brought to the Tucson court system and see, or nationally, and just bring these things, have them expedited. You know, we feel like our daughter as the victim, she's got a right to a speedy trial, but the system's not set up that way. It's set to give the accused a speedy trial, but not the defendant, or not the victim. So there's got to be a smarter way. Every time that trial gets delayed, it's without going into personal details, it's very traumatizing and very upsetting for our daughter, and thusly for our family.
No, I can imagine, and it's got to be very painful to have to relive this every single time you guys are in court, and to have him get to push this process out. Now, how does that work? Because typically, when somebody's apprehended, they're charged with a crime, and there's a pretrial, then the trial date is set. First of all, what is he specifically charged with?
Well, there are a list of charges, and he's charged essentially with the abduction, the armed abduction and rape of our daughter.
Okay.
There's a lot of threats of murder and everything else too. So it's not going to be a pretty trial, and obviously, it's a heated one. So
how does the trial date keep getting moved?
Well, as long as, my understanding of it is, as long as he's able to keep cycling through public defenders and not being satisfied with each one that he's got, then they postpone or reschedule the trial. So it's been 18 months and still no trial. And our daughter feels like she needs to be able to get on with her life. There are things that she wants to go and do, and she's not welcome to do it. She's not able to do it until she gets this trial behind her. So I think the city of Tucson bears some responsibility to bring about a fair and timely procedure on this court. So anyway, we'll move on from that. But that's an ugly thing. It's very harmful for our family. So,
well, let me say one thing, because it's already been made public. So this monster, if he's found guilty of his crimes, he certainly is a monster. His name is, ironically, Johnny Angel Salazar. Is that correct? Is he an American citizen?
His citizenship is legal, and yes, that is his name. But he has been a ward of the state almost since birth. He's a foster child and been a criminal all along, a long history of violent assaults and sexual assaults. And here's another piece to it. He should not have been on the streets. What happened to our daughter should not have happened. He had a warrant out for his arrest for months when he attacked and abducted our daughter. So he should not have been on the streets to do that. Why wasn't that warrant served, and why was he not locked up in a concrete box where he couldn't do that? So I think the system's too soft on these repeat offenders in Tucson. Now, I want to say this, and I make it a point to say this every time. I love Tucson Police Department. I've got their backs and they've got mine. I love the Pima County Sheriff's Department. I've got their backs and they've got mine. The average patrol officer is out there doing the best they can with what they've got. But I think every one of them would share with you in confidence that they wish they were better manned and better equipped and better trained and better supported by the politicians and sometimes their leadership. So we've got a lot of good people doing their best and doing great work and working very hard. But I think it's more of a political problem than a rank and file problem. So, and that seems to be whenever you get corruption or gross mismanagement or poor performance, it's usually the upper ranks where it's compromised. And I would like to see a smart and good faith effort brought to bringing this guy to trial and having him held accountable for his crimes.
Yeah. Well, we'll pray for your daughter, and I'll tell you what, we'll pray for you too, because you know what? Anybody that is trying to target these child sex traffickers eventually becomes a target themselves, whether it's of disinformation or personal attacks. character attacks, things of that nature. And one of those people who's also trying to do what you're doing is President Donald J. Trump. I want to remind people that on October 11th, 2018, this appeared on the whitehouse.gov site. And I believe it's a repost, but what an ironic thing to happen on October 11th as we're having this conversation, Craig. My administration will focus on ending the absolutely horrific practice of human trafficking. President Donald J. Trump and his administration are working to end the scourge of human trafficking, also known as modern slavery. Today, the President's Interagency Task Force to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons, PITF, met to discuss the administration's efforts to tackle human trafficking. This is very real stuff at the highest levels of our government now, Craig, because the witch isn't in the White House. I can assure you that would not appear on whitehouse.gov if Hillary Clinton were sitting in the Oval Office.
Oh, and you could tell by their past performance. Under this administration with Trump, we have arrested more pedophiles than ever before and child traffickers. So he said that he was against it, and he has shown that he's against it. So God bless him for it. Obviously, with this being an estimated $150 billion industry, the fastest growing criminal enterprise on earth, it's a big problem. They're estimating 5 million children are victims right now to child sex trafficking. So that's a lot of harm. That's a lot of shattered lives. So that's a lot of evil to the most precious and innocent. So God bless President Trump for doing his part. Obviously, the DOJ can't solve that on their own. They almost can't arrest them fast enough. We all, as citizens, have to rise up as a culture against this. We've got to see it and recognize what it is, how they target our kids, and we've got to report them. We've got to see it. We've got to vote for stronger enforcement against it, so that all the way down to the local level, they've got better training and funding and motivation and leadership to go after the traffickers. A lot of times they want to do well, but if they see a big dope load of dope and there's a couple of kids in there too, they'll send the kids back across the border because they don't really know how to process them and what to do. The language problem, all kind of things it's tricky dealing with children. So we need to support and train law enforcement. There's a lot of stuff that's got to happen nationally. When a problem has been allowed to grow this large, this long, it's going to be a long road to healing, and we've got to go at it hard first. Arrest the perps, get them off the streets. We've got 14 arrests ourselves. Veterans for Child Rescue has been running our own joint operations, sting operations with federal and local law enforcement. Fantastic work, and we've gotten 14 now arrests across the country, and so we're grateful for that, and we're about to start hiring more investigators as we grow right now, and so that's an exciting part of our development, and that's stuff that you mentioned the detractors or the trolls online. None of them that throw stones at those of us that are actually doing the good work or doing anything. They'll try to discredit us, but whenever challenged, like, okay, let's see what you're doing, then they're gone. So because they're not doing anything. Talk is cheap. It's easy to stay on the do nothing sidelines to make fun of people or try to discredit them that are actually doing the good work. But when they're just these throwaway troll accounts with 3 followers and they're getting paid by George Soros or the Clinton Foundation to attack good people, then it's pretty easy to see through and discard those trolls. But to the good people that actually want to know what's what, that's why we try to load up our website with videos of us running the operations, with the actual arrest reports, with facts. Facts in our culture have to outweigh conspiracy theory and wild guesses and fabricated slander on the internet from people that are drug addicted and uneducated and just trying to make a living attacking good people. We've got to be able to discern fact from fiction, and that's why I like having the facts out there so that people can readily discern truth from fiction. It's a very important part of it.
Yeah, well, I wanted to give you that opportunity too, because I've seen some of the criticism, and for instance, somebody wrote on Twitter a while back to you, been watching and waiting for anything, still nothing but hype. Cameras are not needed to save the children. #fraud. I think what's a bit despicable about these types of critics is that you'll note that they're not trolling Anderson Cooper. who earns $12 million a year from CNN to spew lies to the American people on a daily basis. They're not trolling Wolf Blitzer, who earns $5 million a year from CNN to spew lies to the American people. They're not trolling Hillary Clinton, whose mission it is to lie to the American people. And we know that because she told Goldman Sachs she has two positions, a public one and a private one. So she tells the public one thing, what they want to hear, and then she tells her bankster masters what she's going to actually do. And so I don't have a lot of patience for trolls either, Craig. So do you want to give us any specific updates on some of the good things that are happening? I know back in April you had a successful child recovery.
Yeah, it was on Easter Sunday, and that was, kicking doors in and invading structures is a task of law enforcement. As civilians, you're not welcome to do that. We want to, the way that we are rescuing, if you want to use the term rescuing children, is by taking all of the predators off the streets that are abusing them. Each predator, child predator, destroys the lives of an estimated 70 children each. Some of them hundreds of children, and some of them get caught very early on. So they're saying the average is 70 children each that these pedophiles abuse and sometimes even kill. So every one of those that we take off the streets is an estimated 70 children that may not be subjected to that. So we're not looking for the onesie twosies. We're looking for the millions to change the entire public culture against it, because we've gotten so soft to it, and that's why it's grown so pervasive. And the criminals enjoy this blanket of secrecy that protects them, that they can hide behind and do it right under our noses. So to alert the populace to the threat against our children and show them what it is one of the main mission for us. So alert the populace is number one. We've got the documentary that we've been filming for 18 months, operations in 4 countries. That's not nothing, folks. That's something. That takes a lot of manpower, a lot of doing, with several other NGOs and law enforcement agencies and units. So that's fantastic stuff. We're filming all of it. The cameras are needed if you want to share what you're doing, rather than with a couple dozen people. You want to share it with millions and millions of people across the globe. Then you do need the camera. So the people that are saying that are just wrong. And so that's part of that. We're getting the word out on so many different fronts now. NASCAR showing our emblem, this logo right here, huge as can be, on Team Mike Harmon Racing's car. That was fantastic. We just went to Dover, Delaware last week and hung with the team. My daughter and I. So she was attacked and abused, and they tried to ruin her life, but she's a fighter. She's fighting back. That was in March of 2017. In April of 2017, we officially founded Veterans for Child Rescue to fight back, to rip away the traffickers' veil of secrecy, to rip away their convenient cover that they've been operating behind with impunity. We're taking that from them. We're flipping on all the lights and alerting the populace to what's going on. That's our biggest play, is exposing them and taking their cover away from them. I'm on interviews all over the place. Every interview I can get that's of any substance to get the word out, man. We're taking that secrecy away from the crooks. We're posting stuff up on social media. We've got promo videos. We're showing the arrests. We're showing the rescues. We're showing all of it. We've got outreach programs with hundreds of volunteers going, printing flyers. Staples and Office Max have been helping us with free printing for that. So God bless them for it. There's just a lot of good people volunteering now and coming on board. So there's a lot to it. We're training NGOs that go undercover, as well as operating with them in Southeast Asia, in the bars and brothels, and identifying the underage girls and boys that don't want to be there, that are there under duress, and helping them through a pipeline get out of the child sex trafficking industry. So that's beautiful work. And we're showing the American public with our documentary how all that happens, how the scouts go up into the mountain villages in the different Asian countries and scout and recruit the young girls and boys from the families and tell them we're going to give your child a legitimate employment in the big city. We're going to take them down to Bangkok as an example. And they'll work in the film and television industry, or they'll work in the, hotel industry, and they really end up in the bars and brothels being sold, horrible lives. And so we're alerting people and show them what happens. Here's what happens. Here's what they're really doing. Here's the big deception. And here's how we rip that away to safeguard people from it. So we're doing cyber patrols, man. We're feeding a law enforcement a lot of information about what goes on in these stings and these online predators. We've got a list of apps that predators use to stalk our children, and so that our parents are alerted to it, so we can keep our children from being victims of this, because we think our children are safe at night. We locked our doors, and we lock our vehicles, and we lock our windows, and we think our children are safe. But they're in their bedrooms, and their windows might as well be wide open. Why? Because they're on their phone or on their iPad or their computer, and a full-grown adult predator is stalking them, trying to get pictures and video to compromise our child and blackmail them and scare them into doing more, and lure them away from the safety of their family into the unthinkable. So there's just so many ways that we're fighting, and I'm so thankful for all of the people that are helping with us and stand up with us. So yeah, man, it's inspiring to see, as dark and ugly as the problem is, the light outshines the darkness. We've got so many good Christian people that are putting their backs into this, and hard work. And a lot of it's not glamorous, but when people really want to help the children and they stand up together like this, it all starts adding up. And this is a movement. This is not just us. This is all of you folks. This is everybody. There's people across the globe. It's not just Americans. We wanted to start off here in the United States, but we're a national organization already with a global mission. So there are people asking us to come to Africa, and we've been to 3 Southeast Asian countries already. There are more inviting us. There's European countries inviting us. There's a problem, man, globally. So it's just encouraging to see that we can, just be empowered. We don't have to just be victimized as a family and attacked and sit there and take it and feel like woe is me.
Right.
We can say, hey, you know what? Let's fight back. Our daughter, she had just turned 18 when that happened to her, but her life wasn't done. She's like, you know what? I'm ticked off, Papa. So her serving as a junior decoy agent in our sting operations and interacting with these perverts and criminals online, working with the feds and the locals and our agents, she was able to be instrumental in part of fighting back. And she was able to lure these guys in and have them come straight to the operational house. It was full of SWAT team, K9 unit, federal units, local units, sheriff, chief of police, the district attorney, were all there right next to me. It was just an amazing thing. The camera crew, we were all working together for one mission, one objective, to keep these predators from harming any more children. And my daughter would go and sometimes invite let them know the coast is clear, invite them in from the driveway, from their vehicle, and invite them and sit them down, offer them something to drink, and sit there while we process them and let them express a little further what their intentions were. And then once they had said all they were going to say, and I was satisfied with my interactions with them, I would give a brevity code, and the SWAT team would come in with K9 unit and take that predator down. And my daughter was right there with her little body armor on. The SWAT team would run with guns up right past her, and so she was very much part of these operations. And it was concerning for me, for her safety. And one way, we took every safety precaution we could, but in another way, it was very inspiring and motivating, because she would watch those predators just change from predator into prisoner right before her eyes, and she would see them break down sometimes and cry. Others, try to run, and the K9 unit get them, or others get dizzy and faint, and their knees buckle, and she just gained power from that. And she saw that she was part of the solution, that she could fight back. And even as a young lady, she didn't have to just sit and take it.
Right.
And we all as citizens need to be encouraged by that, and and empowered by it and realize we can do things. We can start an organization. We can go picket. We can hound our elected officials to support our law enforcement with stronger enforcement against this. We can alert people. We can share these videos. We can share our documentary with our friends and empower each other. So we as citizens run this country. That's what our founding fathers wanted. And as Christians, as patriots, and just decent people, we can fight back. And that's what I want to do. So that's what my heart is. That's what I'm fighting for. That's what I've lived my entire life doing. My entire life has been one way, one style, one culture. I was raised by a very sincere pastor. We have a Christian family. I've been surrounded by Marines and Navy SEALs and federal agents that are Christians and patriots and just good people my entire life. So that's been my culture. So there can be no mistaking who I am and what I'm about. I'm doing it. I'm proving it. I'm living it. The evidence is overwhelming of everything that we're doing. So I would say to people that are sitting back that feel maybe beat down or discouraged over the last 8 years, be encouraged, take heart, stand up, rise with B4CR, rise with Veterans Against Child Trafficking, and let's Veterans for Child Rescue, because we are against the trafficking, and stand up with us, support us, donate, buy merchandise, share, volunteer. We can do something. This is our way to fight back, and it works. So that's what I really want to say is just be encouraged and take action. Rise up with us. You don't have to sit on the sidelines anymore. Even if you've waited years, it's empowering to take action. And let's take that hope that everybody has that want to see something done, and let's take a little action. You don't have to solve it all yourself. None of us have to bear the burden alone. It's that alliance that's so strong. Together we are what we can't be alone. We've got fellow NGOs that we're aligning with. Soul No More is one of our partners. SWAT Ministries International is one of our partner NGOs. Together we're finding that we can do things that we can't separately. The reason we're aligning with law enforcement, man, LEOs and NGOs, we can do things together that we can't separately. We can net more criminals put in concrete boxes. We could get more arrests together than we can separately. So let's take that culture of unity and aligning, and let's run with it. Let's let that light shine brighter and brighter and outshine the darkness, and never look back. Let's realize the power that we have and exercise it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know what? The bottom line here, I think, on this interview, the takeaway for me is that, and everybody knows this, but oftentimes very good things can come from very bad things. And this horrible thing happened to your daughter in March of 2017. And the very next month, you founded V4CR, Vets for Child Rescue. So that's a very good thing coming out of something very bad. And that experience of working with your daughter and your daughter's aid in taking down these criminals has to be very much part of her healing process. And so that's fantastic. And you mentioned the fact that there's demand for you guys now all over the world. And there's an awakening to this blight of child sex trafficking and human trafficking all over the world. And it's part of this great awakening, I think. And the good news here, Craig, is that back in 2011, when Andrew Breitbart tweeted about John Podesta, calling him a world-class underage sex slave op cover-upper defending unspeakable drags, most people had no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But now people do. Now people know exactly what he was talking about.
Breitbart was ahead of his time. God bless him for sounding the alarm, and for all the others who have. Now a lot more people are starting to learn about it. The Podestas, man, that's just evil. Those are the type of people we cannot have roaming at large anymore. I'm very impatient for the arrests. I realize there's indications that there's a plan, and that a lot of these people will be that the swamp will be drained all at once, so to speak. I do hope that's the case, but man, it is unthinkable for them to remain free for much longer. I mean, we've just got to take all of these big crooks that are ruining an entire generation of our youth, and we've got to hold them to account. Not only prosecute them, Sean, but make the evidence of their cases known. It needs to be made public. And what I mean by that is sharing with the American populace all that these each of these crooks were up to in their hostility. Like, what were the Podesta brothers really up to? Who were they connected to? And what all got, after their trial, I'm saying, what all was found out? Who were they connected to? Who was funding them? What all harm were they bringing? What were their political motivations? Who were they aligned with? What all was really at stake there? What harm was being brought to the American public because of them? Same thing with the Clintons. The Clintons need to be prosecuted, and they need to be held accountable in everything that they were really up to. All of the stuff that was so deeply buried. Why were they so desperate to destroy all those devices? You know, with the bleach bit and the hammer crushing and all of that. You know, the private server. Just incalculable corruption, that crime family. And so what all were they really up to? We don't know right now. A lot of us can research and find out bits and pieces, but after the trial, after the full-blown investigation, and it all gets exploited and exposed, it needs to be articulated and shared with the American public very specifically so that we understand the diabolical level of hostility and harm that they were bringing, and what all is behind the scenes, who all they were connected to, what that looks like globally, so that we are empowered. We have the knowledge of what to vote against in the future. Because there are a lot of people right now, Sean, you know as well as I do, they don't have a clue. They think Hillary's just a nice old lady that might have been just misunderstood, and they would still vote for her if she's back on the ticket. It's just staggering to think that people don't know, and they need to know. So I hope that once they're prosecuted and their trials, whether it be a military tribunal, which is my hope down at GITMO, because of the severity and their nature of their crimes against our national security, I think that's warranted, or whatever the nature of the trial is. But I hope the results and the facts are made public. It's very important that the American public be spoon-fed those facts, because it's very empowering.
Yeah, I think it's coming, and I want to read something very powerful for you in the audience here. Many people have already probably read this, but you mentioned the frustration over the slowness of the high-level arrests. Now, there's all of these thousands of sealed indictments, so I definitely think the wheels of justice are working behind the scenes. But I want to read this from Q. This was posted on October 9th, and it's very, very important and pertinent to what you just said, Craig. It goes like this. Statement release 10/9/18, P_authority1, suggesting presidential authority to release this general statement. And it reads, "We understand that there is extreme fatigue and frustration, re the wheels of justice slow. Exclude emotion and personal desire, instead use logic and critical thinking based on situational awareness, in brackets, undo a lifetime of evil and corruption, infestation in the span of less than 2 years with a corrupt DOJ and FBI in place, process and planning, law and order, military op. How can you make arrests non-military prior to first fully cleaning out corrupt elements at the top of those departments, FBI, DOJ, that oversee investigation and prosecution in the United States? They themselves are the very ones engaged in the illegal treasonous acts." It goes on to name names, folks. So I think the good news is, Craig, is that the wheels of justice are spinning, and they're really trying to dot every I and cross every T. And then I think maybe we will see tribunals, because you'll recall the exchange between Lindsey Graham and Kavanaugh in the hearings, in which Lindsey Graham asked him about the difference between civilian courts and military courts for those who commit treason.
Yeah, well, we've got a heavy board of advisors at Vets for Child Rescue, and one of them is a Navy Admiral, and he was explaining to me. I asked him very early on. I said, "I'm hearing about expansion of GITMO, Admiral, and it seems like that might be in preparation for housing some of these traitors, high-level government officials that are treasonous to the American people. Is GITMO in fact chartered to house those type of people, or is it just, as my previous understanding was, just international terrorists?" And he said, "No, Craig, it's he goes, I was part of the board that drafted up the charter for GITMO. He goes, it's absolutely for high-level government officials who are traitors." He says that's absolutely within its charter. So that was encouraging to me. So the build out of GITMO and all these sealed indictments and the fact that it is within the GITMO charter, I am hopeful. In my prayers, I pray for justice, because the American people cannot heal until we see those that have brought such great betrayal and such great harm are brought to justice. We have to see them held accountable, and it needs to be harsh. It needs to fit the level of national security harm that these high-level crooks have brought. It can't be a slap on the wrist. That won't do it. And it's not that we're bloodthirsty or anything like that. It's just that level of crime deserves a certain level of punishment, and we expect to see that, and we demand to see that. So
wow.
I'm just anxious for it to come soon, obviously.
Yeah, me too. That's a bombshell. You just shared a bombshell here about GITMO. Now, we've all thought it to be true, but there's some verification from Craig Sawman Sawyer. All right, I want to do this. Let's wrap up the interview, and I just want to address a couple of things. There's charges against you that you used to work for Hillary Clinton, John McCain, and Donald Rumsfeld. And here's the thing I find preposterous about these online trolls. In my last video, I included a clip of former Secret Service agent Gary Byrne, who was on the Clinton detail and hated every moment of it because he can't stand those people. And the bottom line is, you worked in the military. I mean, the charges are that what? You name these people on a daily basis as criminals. And again, I just think it needs to be said that trolls will be trolls. And you served an honorable career in the military. And that's just not good enough for people.
Well, I don't believe for 1 minute that anybody believes that I worked for Hillary. I think that's just something trumped up that people made up. I was never on her detail or anything like that. I was the agent in charge for Triple Canopy for the Department of State in 2004 and early 2005. So Hillary and McCain did make a visit to our region, and so they fall under the agent in charge of that region when visiting for a series of meetings there, and then they're back out. So there are hundreds of Department of State officials and diplomats and senators and Congress people who visit in those war zones, and when they're there, they fall under the agent in charge's security detail.
Of course.
So there will be dozens or even hundreds of detail members that are responsible for making sure these visiting dignitaries don't get kidnapped or killed. And there's motorcades of hardened vehicles and all that kind of stuff. So as an agent in charge, I'm responsible for that region's security, period. So when people come and go, they fall under my ultimate responsibility. But hey, for a day or two, now Rumsfeld's, well, let me just finish with the Clinton and McCain. So they came together. And so, yes, they technically fell under my responsibility, but that was during a short visit for a series of meetings. So to imagine that's somehow, and that was in Iraq, a high threat war zone. So here I am.
And you weren't working for them. You weren't on their payroll.
No,
You're on the payroll.
No, I didn't answer to them in any way.
These trolls are idiots. I'm sorry. It's just, they're slanderous. I'm sorry. They're slanderous. And it bothers me.
So what happens is, the way the dynamic works is a dignitary would actually answer to the agent in charge, not the agent in charge to the dignitary in that situation. Because the agent in charge has that responsibility, he's in charge of all the men and equipment and the motorcade, the hardened vehicles, and all of that. And he decides who moves when, where, how it gets done, and all of that. So the agent in charge is in charge, and the diplomat, if they need to make a move while there, they will request to move. The agent will plan it and send a detail to protect them and move them back and forth. But that's the way that is. So it's just a ridiculous level of ignorance to imagine that, because Hillary or McCain visited a region and fell under the agent in charge's responsibility for that trip, that somehow somebody was following them around, put in a job application to support them and their agenda and around the world, and was on their security detail. That's completely false. So, but I don't even think anybody actually believes that. I don't think.
I don't either.
Ignorant. I think it's a political hit job. I think a lot of people that have been after us and after me, we've discovered that they're just paid troll accounts. So 2 and 3 followers, no name, no face. It's just literally a throwaway fake profile on Twitter or something, and they just make their fake accusations and they run away. So it's just BS.
Yeah. All right. Well, standard military protocol here, and a security detail trying to keep politicians safe when they travel overseas to foreign countries or war zones. I mean, the bottom line here, guys, and I think you all know it, is that trolls will be trolls. They're not too hard to identify. All right.
Let me just celebrate something though, real quick, while we're on the topic. Rumsfeld's detail, that was actually a very interesting and very impressive one. We had Black Hawk helicopters and we had Apache helicopters, a big fleet of them escorting him. So he flew into my region, and then we flew him up to another region. So it fell under my responsibility. So there were hundreds of vehicles involved in that, and hundreds of operators, security detail, joint Department of State and Triple Canopy, and even Kurdish Pesh security detail. That was a giant security thing. He was Department of or Secretary of Defense at the time. So it was a big move. And even then I barely got to see him. You're in charge of all the logistics of it, and but he had his own agent right with him. But that was a fantastic. Those are kind of moves that are actually fun, because there's so much to do, and the threat is so high in some of these regions that a lot of these heroes, these veterans, Spec Ops veterans, that really enjoy moving our dignitaries around. It's unfortunate that once in a while you've got a dignitary whose politics you don't agree with, but the job's a job. So day by day, it's usually somebody different.
Yeah. All right. Well, Craig, I know I've taken a lot of your time, and I'm glad that we addressed a lot of this stuff. And I'm glad that you provided us with such a meaty update, particularly the one about GITMO. That is really, really a fantastic bit of news, and it's a bombshell to the degree that we've all speculated that maybe some of these traitors are headed there. I think you've just put a little bit more evidence in the "it's true" category for us. So thank you for that. And I want people to support you. Can you tell people how they can support you? What's the best way? What's the website? What's the Twitter account?
Yeah, man. Well, the website is vets4childrescue.org, and we use the number 4 in the website to shorten it. So it's vets4childrescue.org, and there's a volunteer portal. There's a donate button, because we don't get any government support. This is all private donations. So bless you guys that have been helping us. That's the only way we can run our ops is through the funding. So we got T-shirts there. Buy T-shirts, that helps us too. I'm Craig Sawman Sawyer on Facebook. I'm Craig R. Sawyer on Twitter. And I'm Real Craig Sawman Sawyer on Instagram. So we use those platforms to help celebrate our efforts for the kids on those platforms. So we appreciate you going there and sharing our stuff so more people can see and help, because the end objective is just to keep these monsters from raping children. It breaks my heart to think of what's going on with the kids, and I just want it to stop. And it's really just that simple for me. And so I just ask that you join us and help us any way that you can.
All right, absolutely. And Craig, thanks for all you're doing, and thanks for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate being on.
All right, God bless. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it very much. If this interview resonated with you, please do share it within social media, within your own sphere of influence, and get the word out. The website, V4CR, vetsforchildrescue.org, is the place to go. And for Real News 24/7, the antidote to corporate propaganda, the place to go is SGTreport.com. And guys, you can of course find my work on YouTube, but you can also find it on BitChute and now on Minds.com. Thanks for your support, guys. Have a great week ahead. God bless.
You're going to see arrests, and then you're going to see indictments, and then you're going to see convictions. They are scared to death.